It was a crazy trip. A 2-day journey home after 2 weeks of vacation with only stops at petrol stations, restrooms, and fast food restaurants. It was getting late. We got home and there was almost nothing edible in the house. I got up early for work, stopped by the local bakery to grab a couple of my favorite donuts and a coffee on the way. The entire office was surprised by my very early return. There was no time for a proper lunch, so I ate a packet of cheese crackers and drank a soda at my desk. I met with my boss and got reprimanded for someone else's mistake. I got home just in time to see my wife, Lori, driving down the street in a rental truck. Her destination was unknown, at least to me. I took the protein bar we had brought with us on our ill-fated trip out of the fridge. The food we had put in there before leaving was untouched. The ice and ice packs had melted, and everything was warm. The protein bar was soaked with water from the melted ice and was inedible. In the living room, almost everything she had before the wedding was gone. I went to the bedroom. The dresser and her childhood dresser were also gone. None of her things were there, and the wardrobe was empty. There were 3 dirty coffee cups on the kitchen island. Her family's china and crystal were gone. None of this came as a surprise. The purpose of the trip was to try to resolve several issues in our 2-year marriage. To be honest, we only had one serious problem, but it was the most serious one. To cheat or not to cheat, that was the question. I was against cheating. One of the songs the DJ played at our reception was about a troubled marriage, and it described us very well. We had only known each other for 6 months before we got married. Can you imagine how many people told us that getting married so early was a huge mistake? The short answer is, pretty much everyone I knew or was connected to. It was the same for her, but we didn't listen because we were in love and knew better than all of them put together. God, we were idiots. The fever mentioned in the song at the reception passed fairly quickly after the priest pronounced us husband and wife. The wedding cake hadn't even had time to go stale before the problem started. It all began with her new boss's son. He was a college football player who had been raised to believe he was entitled to everything he wanted. His father had bought the car dealership where my wife worked. There are 6 car dealerships in our town, and after Martin Justin Jr. bought the one where Lori worked, he owned 3 of them. Lori had worked there for 4 years and played an important role in getting my cousin Jeffrey hired at the dealership. Everyone who knew Jeff loved him and trusted him. He wasn't the smartest or quickest guy in the world, but cleaning cars was a job he enjoyed and was good at. He was also a decent mechanic, but he was never confident enough to do it regularly. He was one of the groomsmen at my wedding, and aside from being my cousin, I considered him a good friend. After Justin bought the car dealership, his son didn't go there at first because he was in school, but when summer came, he started stopping by the office where most of the employees were women, and it became his favorite place. Soon, Lori's desk became the center of his universe when he was at the dealership. According to Lori, he was annoying at first. Then she stopped talking about him, and I thought he had either stopped or moved on to someone else. One evening, Jeff was quieter than usual as we sat on the porch of the house Lori and I were renting. He loved beer, but he couldn't hold his liquor very well, so I always kept a beer nearby for him. If he noticed the difference, he never said anything. Don't get me wrong, he's not stupid. He just can't grasp things quickly, but if he learns something, anything, he'd never forget it. And he was very loyal to his friends, especially me. So there we were, sitting on the porch. He wasn't saying anything and hardly touching his drink. I noticed him looking at me a lot. "Okay, Jeff, what's up?" "Roger likes Lori." Roger was Justin's son. I smiled. "Everyone likes Lori. Lori likes Roger." "No, she doesn't. Tim, I'm not that stupid. He spends a lot of time with her. Today, he left for lunch at the same time she did, and they came back at the same time. Lori never went out to lunch. She always ate in the break room and watched game shows." "Are you sure?" He nodded slowly. That was the first sign that there was trouble in paradise. We didn't talk about it again that evening. When she came home, I asked her if everything was okay at work and if she had any problems. "Everything's fine. Why do you ask?" "Just wondering. Roger used to be a pain, and you haven't mentioned him in a while." "Yeah, he's still a pain, but I can handle him." The second, third, and fourth signs appeared quickly, and they all came from Jeff. Inappropriate touching, such as his hand on her bottom or her hand on his leg when they were sitting next to each other. Things like that, but nothing that directly indicated infidelity. I didn't like what I heard, but I didn't say anything to Lori. I just asked Jeff to keep an eye on them and let me know if he noticed anything. On the occasions when he did see something inappropriate, he called me. I was usually quite aggressive and confrontational, but In this case, I was in no hurry for several reasons. First, I didn't want to think that she was doing something inappropriate, such as cheating on me, but I also didn't want to hear "I told you so" from everyone I knew if she did cheat. One afternoon, he called and said that Lori and Jeff had kissed in Jeff's father's office. Kissing was forbidden. That evening, I talked to her about it. At first, she denied everything, but eventually admitted that she and Roger had played around and kissed a little, but nothing serious. "And that was supposed to be serious?" I asked. "Of course not," she replied. I made it clear to her that I would no longer tolerate playing around and kissing, and that cheating would inevitably lead to divorce. "We can get divorced as quickly as we got married, and I won't drag out the divorce if you ever sleep with someone else." Although I never told her how I found out about her and Roger, Jeff was fired the next day. It wasn't hard to guess. Lori and I never discussed his dismissal, but I thought it was stupid to fire someone with a disability. I also mentioned that Jeff and I were going to file a complaint against Justin with the ADA. No one thought Jeff was disabled. They all just thought he was slow, and mentioning the complaint was just an excuse for me. We never discussed anything like that. The next day, Jeff was rehired at one of the two other car dealerships owned by Martin Justin Jr., but the employees he had worked with before protested so much that he was reinstated to his previous position. It was an interesting experience in interpersonal relations. Almost all of the car dealership employees came to Jeff's defense. After our conversation and my announcement that I was getting divorced, Lori and I discussed several times how spouses should behave. The first and most important of these rules is to never allow yourself to get into a situation that your spouse does not approve of. For example, dinner alone with a member of the opposite sex who is not a family member may be completely innocent, but his or her appearance may cause rumors, especially in a small town. Once rumors start to spread, they are impossible to control, and a good reputation can be quickly ruined. After this conversation, we thought about it for a while and decided to take a holiday and try to recapture the magic, the fever mentioned in the song at our reception. We planned the trip, took time off work, packed our bags, and set off. The journey took 2 full days. The first few hours of the trip were quite pleasant, but then, less than 4 hours later, her phone rang. She looked at it but didn't answer. However, she turned off the sound. Less than an hour later, she got another call. She held the phone in her hand, and it vibrated. Feeling the vibration, she jumped up nervously. She looked at the phone but didn't answer, and after a few minutes asked if we could stop so she could use the toilet. We stopped at a large truck stop. I pulled up to a petrol pump. She jumped out of the car and went inside. I don't usually like inattentive drivers who fill up their tanks and leave their cars at the pump while they go into the shop or use the petrol station services. Usually, this means that other drivers have to wait until they finish. Everything goes much smoother if you park your car after filling up and only then go inside, but damn it, that's just my complaint. That time, I was the most careless person there. When she hurried inside, I followed her. She didn't look back, and as soon as she walked out the door, immediately took out her phone. "I told you I'd call when I could." There was a pause. "Damn it, Roger, I'm serious. I'll call you when I get back." Another pause. "Roger, don't." She looked at her phone, then looked around. I hid behind a long shelf of snacks and waited a few seconds, then looked up to see where she was. She had her back to me when I heard her words. "You son of a bitch. Don't ever hang up on me again." Apparently, the son of a bitch really did hang up because she looked back at her obviously dead mobile phone. This time she didn't look back. She just tried to call him, but he didn't answer. She was still looking at her mobile when I walked over and stood in front of her. "Are you okay?" I asked. Yes, everything's fine." She looked up at me. "I need to use the toilet," she said and hurried away. I went back to the car and filled up the tank. She came out with a soda. I looked at her. "It's okay. I'll get it myself," I said, going into the shop. She stared at me as if she didn't understand that it would be nice to at least ask if I needed anything from the shop. As I left the shop, I looked back. She was talking on the phone again. She finished her call just as I opened the car door. I didn't say anything, started the car and drove away. We spent that evening in a motel. We ordered pizza to the room and went to bed before 10. We spent most of the next day on the road, hardly speaking. We checked into a hotel, had dinner at a restaurant, and went to bed. I was still awake, staring into the darkness, when, after 11 o'clock, I saw her phone ring. No sound, just the light. She jumped up and ran into the bathroom with it. I slowly got up and stood behind the closed bathroom door, trying to hear something, but I couldn't. "Please don't" were the only words I understood. The conversation went on for several minutes, and I stood there trying to make out what she was saying, but I couldn't. I was still standing there when she opened the door. She screamed. I scared her to death. What? 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 What are you doing there? She asked when she realized who it was. I just wanted to know what you were doing in there. I pointed to the bathroom. Nothing. Just going to the toilet. And you needed your phone for that? Yes. I turned on the lights so I wouldn't break anything on my way here. She tried to get past me. You forgot to flush. Oh, yes. She stepped back and blushed. Who are you talking to? What? Who are you talking to? No one. Why? I knew she was lying, and she knew I knew. I'm going to bed. Tell me who you were talking to and what you were talking about in the morning, or we're going home. We came on this trip to figure things out, but we need both of us to do that. Secrets don't bode well for our plan. I went to bed and fell asleep before dawn. When I woke up about an hour later, she was sitting on the sofa in the room. I got up, put a couple of pillows under me, and looked at her. She looked at me again. It was Roger. What was it? He wants me to sleep with him. I thought before answering. Again, I asked. She hesitated before nodding. On my part, it was a shot in the dark. I had no reason to believe they had actually slept together. To be honest, I was stunned by her confession. How many times have you slept with him? Twice. Why? I don't know. The first time, probably out of curiosity. And the second time? He said if I didn't do it, he'd tell you. And he's threatening you again? Yes. I knew how I would react. I would never let her think that cheating was okay. In fact, I had made it clear to her what would happen if she did, and I expected the same from her if I ever cheated on her. You know this will end our marriage, right? Tears welled up in her eyes and she nodded again. I got up and went to the bathroom. No matter what was going on around me, if I needed to pee, I had to pee. After I flushed and washed my hands, I brushed my teeth, washed my face, put my toothbrush and toothpaste back in my shaving kit, and opened the door. I'm going home. You can come with me or wait for him to pick you up. It only took a few minutes to get ready and leave the room. I registered us. We got in the car and began the long journey, with stops only for petrol, toilets, and fast food, as I mentioned earlier. This trip was supposed to be her chance to apologize, ask for forgiveness, or beg for a second chance, but she did none of that. In fact, we didn't speak a word to each other the entire time. When we stopped, she bought food for herself, and I bought food for myself. If she needed to stop to use the restroom, she never mentioned it. When we stopped, she was always the first one back in the car. At home, my first day of work was over. All of Lori's things had been removed from the house, and I hadn't eaten anything good in several days. We had never used the only food delivery service in town, but I decided it was a good time to start. I went to their website, registered, and ordered food. 40 minutes later, the delivery service called. I picked up the food, tipped the driver in addition to what I had added to the bill when I placed the order, and eagerly waited to enjoy my meal with a glass or 2 or 6 glasses of wine. I put the food on a tray by the TV and sat down to eat. From my chair, I could see both the TV and the street through the window. There was a car parked outside with a woman behind the wheel. As I ate, my attention shifted from the TV to the car with the driver. I was halfway through my meal and the driver still hadn't moved. I took a sip of wine and went outside. The driver saw me and rolled down her window. It was my delivery person and she was in tears. Are you okay? I asked. No, my car won't start and I can't call anyone for help. When she arrived, I didn't pay any attention to her or her car because I was preoccupied with other thoughts. Everyone I know is busy or not answering, and my brother won't be able to come for another hour. Another thing I didn't notice was the child in the back seat. She was sitting with a book on her lap and also looked like she wanted to cry. Do you want me to check on her? Oh God, please. She opened the door and slid inside. I got behind the wheel and turned the key. Click, 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 and then nothing. I tried again. This time there weren't even any clicks, just nothing. I'm not a mechanic, but I think I know when a battery is dead. I walked over to the car and tried to start it, but to no avail. Suddenly, I realized that this was beyond me. Listen, why don't you two go inside? I'll call my cousin and he'll take a look. They reluctantly followed me. Make yourselves comfortable while I call him. Jeff arrived 15 minutes later, and 30 minutes later her car was ready. She thanked me, talked to Jeff, hugged him, and drove away. The next 2 days at work were awful. I didn't tell anyone about Lori, and my boss was on my case like a dog on a bone, and I was tired of it. My personal life was in shambles. and he was counting on getting a silk purse out of a sow's ear on a low-profit project. I decided it was time to talk to him. I'm tired of your nagging. The project was doomed from the start, and I told you so. I hate ultimatums, but either you back off and give me a chance to see what I can do with it, or you give the project to someone else, or you just kiss my ass and I'm out of here. Take your pick. I'm going home. Call me when you decide. I was sure he would give me a couple of days to cool off and then call and take me back. Besides, I needed to find a lawyer and start divorce proceedings. That evening, I called Jeff to ask if he wanted to have a drink. Although drinking with him meant wine or beer for me and almost beer for him, I can't. I have a date. He had gone on dates when we were in high school, and when I was in college, he often called me to tell me about his rare dates and ask for my advice. If he was lucky, I never heard about it, but he was the kind of guy who didn't brag, even to me. Besides being a bit slow on the uptake, he was also terribly shy, and strangers made him very nervous. Well, good for you. Who's the lucky girl? Jenny. What Jenny? The nurse. What nurse? The one at your house with the broken car. Are you serious? Yes. And how did that happen, Mr. Smooth Talker? When I fixed her car, I told her to call me if she needed any help, and she did. And you helped her again. He giggled like a child. Yes. Where are you taking her? Nowhere. Isn't there room in the car? No, I'm taking her home. She's making me dinner. I laughed, happy for him, but couldn't resist teasing him. You do know she's a vegetarian, right? What's that? It's a person who only eats plants, no meat, no eggs, no dairy. Jeff was a real meat eater. There are a few restaurants that advertise that if you eat a huge steak that's more like a roast, with salad, vegetables, and dessert, it's free. One of them is near us. Jeff did just that. He was sick for 2 days, but he did it. No meat? Not even a hamburger? What am I going to eat? Well, there will be lots of salad, maybe beans. And if we're lucky, quinoa. What's quinoa? Not royal, quinoa. It's a seed that's used in a lot of vegetarian dishes. Many years ago, in the Lake Titicaca region of South America, it was fed to animals, and then people started eating it themselves. What? I'm not hungry anymore. I laughed into the phone. I'm kidding, Jeff. I have no idea what she's eating, but whatever it is, I'm sure it will be delicious. Go have fun. I decided to call the food delivery service again to get dinner for myself. The next day, I did some housework. Lori was away, and I still had over a year left on my lease, so I decided to make myself as comfortable as possible. I also assumed that my boss would call, apologize, and ask me to come back to work. By midday, he still hadn't called, but his wife did. Tim, I'm tired of listening to your father complain that you're ruining everything. You have an education. Why don't you get a job with someone else if you can't get along? I've thought about it, Mum, but you know I'd have to move. That's the only thing that bothers me. Why can't you just do what he wants? Because he does everything the old way. We need to modernize. Have you explained that to him? Many times, but he's too stubborn to listen. Well, I don't want you to move, so talk to him again. Okay, I promise. He'll come around and call me tomorrow, I'm sure. I'm looking right at him. Just come to work tomorrow. He's nodding his head that everything's fine. Now, why don't you and Lori come over for dinner tomorrow? I'd love to, Mum, but she won't be. Why not? I kept putting it off, but I decided it was time. I started telling her, and she told my father, and he asked her to put me on speakerphone. When I finished, he took the phone. Here's what we're going to do. I'm firing you so you won't have a job. When it comes to court, you won't have any income and you won't have to pay her alimony. After the divorce, you'll find a job. I told you she was useless and she proved it. You'll be better off without her, added my mom. Thanks, you two, but I'll figure it out myself. See you at the office, Dad. Mom, see you tomorrow for dinner. The next day, I tried to explain why and how I thought these changes would help the company, but Dad was more interested in hearing about Lori and telling me, I told you so. After work, we had dinner with my mom, and I had to tell the story about Lori again and listen to him say, I told you so, with my mom adding her own comments. When I got home, Lori was standing on the porch. I hadn't seen her since our canceled trip. I saw her in the light from the porch lamp. I drove into the garage and went into the house from there. As I walked to the light switch by the front door, turned off the porch light, and headed for the shower, the doorbell rang. When I finished, it was gone. Finding a solicitor was easy. Finding one who would want to deal with a divorce directly or indirectly related to Roger Justin was a little more difficult. but I found one. Of course I'll take the case. His old man sold me the biggest lemon I've ever eaten and never paid me back. And so it began. Paperwork. Meetings. Meetings with Lori and her lawyer. During all that time, I never spoke to her directly, and apart from visiting her house that evening when I ignored her, she showed no interest in talking. And I didn't want to talk. She had cheated on me, so I didn't see the point in talking. According to Jeff, Lori had moved to another car dealership and Roger rarely showed up there anymore. Rumor had it that Roger had dumped her for someone more deserving. Meanwhile, Jeff and Jenny were getting along, and Jenny's daughter thought he was wonderful. He divided his free time between her house and mine and was happier than I had ever seen him. The more he talked about his relationship with Jenny, the more I realized that the only personal relationship I had had in the last few weeks was with my hand. I went home from work, sometimes stopping by the lawyer's office, the grocery store, or my parents' house. Dad got his dose of "I told you so," and even made a couple of attempts to understand my ideas for improving the company. Mom continued to set me up with women, and I continued to refuse to go on dates with them. Our town is relatively small, and I had no idea there were so many single, eligible women out there, as she claimed. I think she was casting a call. Handsome, educated 28-year-old man, divorced, looking for the right girl. Must be honest, loyal, and reliable. Appearance is not as important to her as character. Must love music, theater, good wine, and good food. I stopped answering her calls after the 5th date she set up for me and told my father I had moved to Houston when he first mentioned setting me up with someone. I finally spoke to Lori on the day our divorce was finalized. The judge banged the gavel announcing the end of the marriage, and I walked over to her. Was it worth it? I turned and walked away without waiting for her answer. Jeff used to wash my car, but he stopped because he was too busy cleaning Jenny's car, so one Saturday, I washed her car. He pulled up to the driveway with Jenny and her daughter Sophie. Sophie was about 7 or 8 years old. They were going to the shopping center and asked if I wanted to go with them. I dipped the sponge in the bucket of water, wiped my hands, and said, "Let's go." When I'm so bored that I go to the shopping center to walk around and keep myself busy, it means I've hit rock bottom. But that's exactly what I did. We were there for about an hour, and I was already starting to regret my decision to go when we passed an ice cream stand and Sophie asked if she could have some ice cream. "Not now, sweetie," Jenny said. "It's almost dinner time." "Oh, what the hell," I said. "Come on, Sophie, I want some too." She grabbed my hand and ran off. "See you later," I called after her. We licked our ice cream and walked along, holding hands. "Let's hold hands," said Sophie. "Mummy said she doesn't want me to get lost when we're out with lots of people, so I have to hold her hand. I don't want you to get lost, so I have to hold your hand too." Good idea. We had been walking for a few minutes, and when she wasn't licking her ice cream, she chattered nonstop. Suddenly, I felt myself being thrown to the ground, and I lost consciousness, hitting my head on the floor. When I came to, I was handcuffed, surrounded by police officers and an angry crowd. I looked at Sophie. She was crying and being held by a woman. "What the hell?" "Shut up, Slytherin. We'll deal with you in a minute." "It's okay, Sophie," the woman said. "He can't hurt you." "He didn't hurt me. He bought me ice cream." "I know, sweetie. Bad people sometimes do that." "He's not a bad person, Aunt Louise. Where's my mum?" "I called her. She's on her way." "Is Tim hurt?" "Who's Tim?" "Him," she said, pointing at me. Every time I tried to speak, the policeman ordered me to shut up. "Do you know him?" "Yes. He's Jeff's cousin. We came here to do some shopping." "Oh my God," Aunt Louise said. Then she turned to one of the policemen. "I think I made a mistake." "God, lady, don't tell me that." He looked at the crowd. "We better get him out of here before the crowd tears him to pieces." He grabbed my arm. "Let's go." Some of the crowd followed us into the security office. I heard words like "castrate that bastard" and "give him to us." I started to get scared, and every time I tried to say something, one of the policemen silenced me, saying I could talk later. I was taken into a room, searched, my pockets emptied, and I was still handcuffed. Finally, 2 police officers came in, took off my handcuffs, returned my wallet, watch, and other belongings, and began to apologize. Jenny and Jeff came in. "My God, Tim, I'm so sorry," Jenny said. "My sister saw you with Sophie, didn't know who you were, and thought you were kidnapping her." I rubbed my wrists. I had seen people on TV rubbing their wrists when their handcuffs were removed. I didn't understand why before, but now I did. Those damn things hurt to take off. I was furious, shaken, still a little scared and nervous. Jeff kept asking if I was okay. Jenny kept apologizing. and Sophie clung to Jenny for dear life. I looked at one of the officers. Can I go? Yes, sir, but before you leave, we would like you to sign a release form. You just knocked me down, knocked me out, handcuffed me, and called me names. I'm not signing any form until I talk to my lawyer. I walked out of the room into a more spacious area. One of the mall security guards was standing at the door. Is that the exit? Yes, sir, but I wouldn't go in there if I were you. Why not? Because there are people in there who think you're a pedophile and they're waiting for you. Jesus Christ! Could this day get any worse? Can't you tell them the truth? We tried. We are taking you out the back way, Mr. Jeffries, said the police sergeant. He, or someone else, had obviously looked in my wallet and knew my name. Take him to my car, Jeff said. The sergeant looked at me. Why don't you let us take you home? We'll take my car. It's unmarked. Let's go. I wasn't angry or upset with Jeff, Jenny, or even Aunt Louise. I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible and decided that the fastest and safest way was with a police escort. We were already at the back door when Aunt Louise stopped me. I'm sorry. I saw you with Sophie and thought you were kidnapping her. I took a deep breath. I understand, but I was attacked, knocked out, and there, I pointed to the main office door. A bunch of people want to cut my balls off. I don't think you should be talking to me right now. Then I turned to the sergeant. Take me home. After I gave him my address, we didn't speak until we arrived at my house. My phone rang at least 6 times, but I ignored it. I didn't want to talk to anyone. When we arrived, I started to get out of the car, but he stopped me. Mr. Jeffries, I'm very sorry you were in that situation, but from my point of view, I'd rather have it happen this way than have a young girl get kidnapped because someone saw something and didn't say anything. I will always support good Samaritans like Louise Garner. I understand and agree with your position, but my name and photo will most likely be in the news tonight. Since it was a mistake, it shouldn't have been reported, but it's a sensational story, so it will be in the news. Journalists can't resist. Then the news will say it was a mistake and everything is fine, but half the viewers won't believe that part of the story, and I'll be branded for life. Thanks for the ride home. Maybe it's not so bad. I'll see what I can do. Yeah, pigs fly, I thought to myself. I got in the car and drove straight to my parents' house. In the evening, we watched the local news, and sure enough, there they were. We turned on the TV and found the right channel, and they were already showing it. We missed the first part of the story, but we heard that if you see anything, report it, even if it turns out to be a mistake. By not saying anything, you could condemn an innocent child to an incredible fate. The positive thing for me was that they didn't mention my name or show my photo. The commentator even ended the report by saying, "We have decided not to name this gentleman so as not to ruin his life any more than it has been ruined today. Personally, I offer him my sincere apologies. Louise Garner, good evening." Well, you dodged a bullet, my father said. It's not as bad as you thought. No, I didn't think so. What are you going to do now? My mother asked. I think I'll leave things as they are. If I try to sue for wrongful arrest, it will get publicized, and my name and photo will probably end up in the gossip columns. I don't want that to happen, and the police did what they thought was right at the time. On the way home, I remembered my mobile phone. By then, I had 8 messages. 3 were from Jeff, apologizing for what had happened and telling me how upset Jenny was. Judging by the caller ID, the rest were from the city police and the local TV station. I didn't listen to any of them. Later, I remembered how the woman on the news had ended the program. This is Louise Garner. Good night? Damn. What did the police sergeant say to me? I'm always happy to help kind people like Louise Garner. Well, kiss my ass. I didn't recognize her at the shopping center, so I didn't recognize her on TV. Maybe the makeup changed her appearance. I called Jeff because I knew he would be worried about me. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, everything's fine, but I'm still a little in shock. How's Sophie? She's fine. She got scared when the police officers rushed at you and dropped her ice cream. But when we gave her another one, she calmed down, realizing you were okay. I'm glad she's okay. Did you watch the news? Almost. I missed the first part. Damn, that was the best part. Why? Louise started telling them what happened and how she started it all. She said she saw her niece walking with a strange man and panicked. She followed you while she was on the phone with the police. She didn't trust the mall security, so she stayed behind you and told the police where you were until they arrived. She took full responsibility for what happened and said she probably would have done the same thing in a similar situation. I think I understand. She was afraid you would run away with Sophie before the police arrived, So when she ran after you, she looked for something she could hit you with. She's really very upset. Why didn't you tell me earlier that Jenny's sister was on TV? I didn't think it mattered. No, probably not. When Jenny brought food to my house, I got the impression that well, that she needed money. But if her sister's a TV presenter, she can't be that bad. It's a local program, so Louise doesn't earn much. I don't know exactly how much, but I know it's not a lot. And Jenny, I think she's just like most of us. She's fine, but she doesn't have any extra money. If she needs something, she has to find the money. She's saving up for a holiday, so she does food deliveries on the side. Good for her. Yeah. He fell silent. I like her, Tim, and she likes me. She doesn't mind that I'm slow. I smiled. No one minds that you're slow, Jeff. Your friends don't care, and we don't care what other people think. Over the next few days, everything returned to normal, and no one mentioned the incident at the shopping center. I didn't see Jenny or Sophie, but Jeff and I talked as usual every couple of days. It was another Saturday, and it was almost noon. I was having a late breakfast of biscuits and gravy when the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there stood Louise Garner. Good morning. Are you busy? She asked. No, not really. I just put some ointment on my wrist to ease the pain from the handcuffs. Tim, if I may call you that, I'm sorry. Oh, it's okay. Now that I'm in handcuffs, all my friends in the neighborhood treat me with great respect. Maybe I should go. No, come in. I just spoke to my parole officer. She just looked at me sadly. I can only apologize. I'm sorry I bothered you. She turned to leave. Wait a minute, I said. I had no reason to act like a jerk. She stopped. I'm not quite myself yet. I'll get through this. Call me when you get there, she said, handing me her business card. I owe you lunch, at least. I don't know about lunch, but have you had breakfast? Actually, no. Do you like cookies with sauce? With sausage sauce? Yes. One of my favorite things, she said, smiling. I opened the door wide and she came in. In the kitchen, I gave her a plate and pointed to the stove where the biscuits and sauce were. Would you like me to heat up the sauce? I asked. I can do that myself if you don't mind, she replied. Help yourself. Coffee? Yes, please. Would you like anything with your coffee? This might sound strange, but do you have chocolate milk? Instead of coffee? Oh, no. In the coffee. In the coffee? Yes, she replied timidly. I know it sounds strange, but she was the second person in my life who added chocolate milk to their coffee. The first was me. Only in the last few years had I replaced it with Bailey's. Did Jeff put you up to this? What? Chocolate milk in your coffee? No. Why? I'm the only person I know who does that, or rather, did, now that you do it too. Are you sure Jeff didn't put you up to it? I've been drinking chocolate milk in my coffee since I started drinking coffee. My whole family does it, even Sophie when Jenny lets her. I don't have chocolate milk, but I have Bailey's. The rest of the morning passed quickly and pleasantly, and Louise began turning her coffee into Bailey's. It was our first breakfast together, but it wouldn't be our last. We started dating, and I became her biggest fan on television. Our first kiss happened on our third date. We had sex for the first time 3 weeks after that. And it was my first time since Lori and my failed search for new experiences, where the only thing I discovered was that she was cheating on me. Shortly after Jeff and Jenny became a couple, he decided he wanted more out of life and started working with cars full-time. 6 months later, he had his own garage and more work than he could handle. Jenny and Sophie were clearly attracted to him. I'm sure there's a scientific or psychological explanation for this, but it seemed to me that Jeff had become, what? Smarter? Faster? More attentive? I can't say for sure, but he was different and much more confident. Louise and I helped him when he moved in with Jenny. Sophie followed him and went everywhere with him. I saw them holding hands and told her she was keeping him from getting lost. No, we're keeping each other from getting lost. I couldn't think of anything sweeter she could have said about him. A year after the divorce, I found out that Lori was getting married again, but not to Roger Justin. She was marrying some poor guy who worked for the city sanitation department. They had known each other for 5 months. I wished him luck. I thought he would need it. I had long since realized that I didn't hate her or even dislike her. We were both to blame for getting married so young. Of course, the affair was entirely her fault. For almost 2 years, life was good. Jeff and Jenny were planning their wedding. Louise was the maid of honor, and I was the best man. Their parents had divorced when Louise, the youngest of the siblings, was 4 years old. Their brother was supposed to walk Jenny down the aisle. My lease was up, so I moved in with Louise. We never talked about marriage, and we were both so happy that even during Jeff and Jenny's wedding preparations, there was no mention of our wedding. There is a publication that lists radio and television job openings across the country. Without Louise's knowledge, the host of her news program compiled some of her old videos and sent them to much larger markets than our small area. He liked her work and wanted to help her get ahead. One day she got a call from a TV station in Houston. The news director watched a few clips and asked for more. Eventually, he offered her a job in Houston. She was thrilled, and we discussed it. It was a dream come true for her, and we decided she should go. After the interview, she told me that one of the videos he had watched and liked was the one where she thought I was kidnapping Sophie. The interview went well, she was filmed, and they said they would call. They did call. 2 weeks later, she was offered the job. In my opinion, the decision to hire her was a foregone conclusion. It was a huge step towards national fame, which is, of course, what every TV presenter aspires to. My stubborn father finally agreed to do a couple of things my way, and the changes were for the better. Our business grew slowly but surely, and I was happy to help him. He was happy, I was happy, our employees were more than happy, and the profits were very high. Moving to Houston was not an option for me. Houston was a 4-hour drive away, but Louise and I decided we could make it work and keep our relationship going. And we did, for 6 months. Then the trips to see each other and the phone calls became fewer and fewer. We couldn't watch the show on TV because our cable provider didn't offer it. I could watch it online, and often did. She worked there for only 3 months before being transferred from the newsroom to a daily talk show, where she and her co-host interviewed guests and the studio audience about everything under the sun. They also attended almost every charity event in the broadcast area. Their photos appeared regularly in newspapers and on the website, and she seemed to be enjoying life. Strangely enough, so was I. The challenges of a growing business suited me, and I spent less and less time on what Louise was doing. Of course, the downside was that she had to sleep alone, at least for me. I didn't know if she was sleeping with her cute neighbor or someone else, but since Lori was my only point of reference, the thought never left my mind. One Wednesday morning, I drove to Houston to surprise her. I told my father I was taking the week off and going to see her. "Does it have to be this week?" he asked. "It's been a long time and I think we need to talk." "You'd better wait." "I can't." Right after our conversation, Jeff called and said he needed help that afternoon and asked when I could come in. "I'm going to Houston. I'll be back on Sunday." "That's too late." "What's so important that it can't wait?" I asked. "It's about Jenny." "Jeff, I'm sorry, but I can't. I'm leaving for Houston." Their show was broadcast live every morning. During the day, they prepared for the broadcast, researched information about guests, and planned the next day's program. They didn't just show up, do an hour-long show, and go home. They spent the entire day preparing and developing the program. I arrived at her flat shortly after noon. I decided to wait for her there, but found that my key didn't work. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. I went to the manager's office and asked for a new key. She recognized me and greeted me warmly, but when I told her why I was there, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that." "Why not?" "We have a new rule. Only the tenant can authorize the release of keys or entry to the premises, and they must sign the key release form in person." "But you know me." "Yes, sir, I'd like to. But rules are rules." "Let me ask you a question." "Okay. What if I were her husband? Would that make a difference?" "It depends on who signed the lease. Only the tenant can give permission, period." I immediately realized that I was dealing with a brick wall, so I left her office and headed for my car through the garage. Her space was empty. I called her from my car. When she didn't answer, I left her a message asking her to call me back. She called back just a few minutes later. "Hi, darling," she said when I answered. "Hi, how are you?" Same old, same old. What's new?" "I was thinking of coming over for the weekend." "That would be great. I need to finish the project we're working on by Friday." "Okay, what kind of project?" "It's one of the charities our boss is involved with. We're putting together a competition with lots of prizes for the biggest donors. It's interesting, but a lot of work." "Are you working on it today?" "No, I need a break, so I took the day off." "What are you doing?" "Just relaxing." "Okay, relax. See you on Friday." "Okay, sweetheart. Take care. I love you." "Bye." I tried to say I love you, but I couldn't. I walked through the garage, past her still empty parking space to the lift, got out on her floor, rang her doorbell several times, and waited each time before giving up and leaving. For a moment, I hesitated. Should I leave or stay and continue watching her and waiting? I even thought about calling her again and telling her where I was, but decided not to. She had made her bed and was probably already lying in it. The problem was that it wasn't her bed if she was lying there. I left. I didn't rush home. There were 2 cars in the driveway and 2 on the street. One belonged to my parents and the other to Jeff. I wasn't in the mood for company, and since they thought I was away for the week, I wondered why they were even there. I pulled up to the house and used the remote to open the garage door. Louise's car was in the garage. I got out of the car and Jeff opened the kitchen door. He bowed and invited me in, then led me into the living room where my parents, Jenny, Sophie, Louise's mother and brother, and Louise herself were standing. Louise stood in front of the fireplace, surrounded by the others. Jeff nudged me towards her. Everyone was smiling except Louise. She looked nervous. I walked up to her and she dropped to one knee, cursing God. "Tim, I love you. If you're going to kidnap someone, let it be me, and we'll live happily ever after. Will you marry me?" she asked, holding out a small box. The events of the day faded away as I opened the box and saw a gold ring with a diamond staring back at me. She was still kneeling when I took the ring out of the box and examined it closely. I started to put it on her finger, but she stopped me. "No, silly. It's an engagement ring. You can't wear it until we're married, if we are, because you haven't answered me." I looked around the room, then back at her. "Of course, why not?" Everyone nodded approvingly. "Romantic?" "Not at all, but I said it with a big smile, hugging her. "You're such a fool," she said after the kiss. "You chose today of all days to visit me. You almost ruined everything." Dad patted me on the back. "We didn't know what to do. You insisted on going to Houston, and Louise was just about to come here. Even Jeff tried to stop you. We talked to her, and she said you'd probably be back tonight, so we decided not to wait. What was so important that you insisted on coming today?" I looked around at everyone. "Honestly? Yes," everyone replied in unison, except Sophie and Louise. Louise said, "Let me explain." She took a deep breath and took my hands. "For the past couple of months, we've both felt like we've been growing apart. We have 2 different lives and we live hours apart. We were both happy in our jobs and our lives, but we felt like something was missing. I thought about the time we spent in Houston and remembered the parties, the fun, the people, everything I wanted out of life. My job is perfect, but my life is incomplete. It's incomplete because I can't share these wonderful moments with you." There were tears in her eyes as she continued. "I knew that if I felt this way, then you felt the same way if you loved me. I wanted you to share every little thing in your life with me. About what you like about your job and how happy you are when things are going well." She paused. "Am I right?" I could only nod my head. "I love you, Tim, with all my heart." "And I love you," I told her, and it was true. At that moment, the party started. Sophie, Jeff, and Jenny were the last to leave. Sophie wanted to hug me, and I hugged her. "Does that mean you're my uncle now?" she whispered. "Yes," I whispered back. "Good." When everyone had left, Louise and I sat down on the sofa, each with a glass of wine, leaning back, enjoying each other's company. "Do you know why I went to Houston today?" I asked her. "I think I do." "Why?" "You were afraid that I would live there alone and maybe start a relationship with another man." "Were you afraid? What, that I would start a relationship with another man?" "Yes." "No. The only men I've ever had real relationships with are my producer, the studio staff, and Thomas." Thomas was her co-host. "Thomas worried me the most. All those events you went to and your photos in the newspapers. I was worried and jealous." She leaned over and kissed me. "Silly boy. I could tell you that Thomas is gay and you have nothing to worry about. But that would be a lie. In reality, he is the most self-absorbed bastard I have ever met. He expects people, especially women, to worship him. We worked well together, but personally I don't have any feelings for him. And he doesn't have any feelings for me." She took a sip of wine. "I wouldn't lie about him being gay, but I did lie to you." I laughed. "Yes, you did. My estate agent helped me. I was just about to leave when your father called and said you were on your way. I called the estate agent and told her what was happening. She said she would sort everything out. A few minutes later, she called me and said the repairmen were on their way to replace the lock on my door. She decided that if you could get into the flat, you would stay and wait for me, no matter how long it took, which neither she nor I wanted. I felt that I knew you well enough to understand how you would react if you thought I was doing something wrong, so I chose that option. I knew that if I told you the reason, you wouldn't ask me for details. Your experience with Lori would have made you think the worst and act accordingly. I'm sorry I misled you, but I knew it would bring you here, to where I wanted to propose to you in front of your family. Will you forgive me? There was no doubt about it. Of course I forgive you. And I'm sorry I was so unhappy that I said yes. I was in shock. She laughed. We all wanted you to be in shock. Well, I was. I leaned in and kissed her. I loved this woman. And then I took another sip of wine. What time are you leaving for Houston? It was a 4-hour drive, and she had a show, so she usually left in the middle of the night. I had forgotten about her show that day. Or are you leaving tonight? I asked. I didn't want to waste any more time. I wanted to get her into bed, and as soon as possible. Well, she hesitated. Let's talk about it. Today's show was recorded on Monday. Tomorrow's and Friday's shows were recorded yesterday. On Friday, I'll announce that it's my last show because I want to go home and be with my future husband. I leaned back in my chair and looked at her. That's okay, right? Of course, it's not a big deal. It's even better than a big deal. It's great, but won't you miss him? Yes, but I miss you more. And I was hoping to convince my old station to let me create a program about local heroes, talents, events, and people. That should be enough to… For what? Until the baby is born. And then we'll see. I took a sip of wine. She leaned back in her chair and looked at me. Did you hear what I just said? Yes. I just didn't realize Jenny was pregnant. She shook her head. She's not pregnant, silly. I'm pregnant. I managed not to drop the glass when I put it on the table and picked her up. Our life is wonderful. Louise is back at her old radio station and doing the same program she did in Houston, only without a co-host. Our daughter Danielle is doing great. Things are going well for my father and me, and Sophie can't wait to take Danielle for a walk and hold her hand so she doesn't get lost. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.